Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. H22, and welcome to another one of my game reviews. In today's game review, we are going to be reviewing what I would like to call an underrated masterpiece and Bloober Team's first masterpiece. Now, we all know Bloober Team. They're a developer that focuses mainly on psychological horror games, and I'd say this is quite an underrated developer and also one of my favorite developers because Bloober Team has got some really amazing horror games. I feel like the only ones that people really liked was Observer, and like even the Medium has some really harsh critics, and like they're criticizing a game that clearly doesn't deserve it. I'm not saying all of Bloober Team's games are amazing. We all know that Blair Witch was garbage, but I'd say that was one of their only bad games. And I think I'm going to start a series based off of just Bloober Team and just talking about them and their games. And I figured why not start off with Bloober Team's first masterpiece, Layers of Fear, which is, in my opinion, one of the best psychological horror games ever made. Now, when I first played this game, I was someone who was a huge fan of survival horror, um, especially after playing the infamous Resident Evil 4, Outlast, Amnesia, and especially a game called Condemned Criminal Origins. I was just a huge fan of survival horror, man. I thought that survival horror was the best type of horror game, because it had that adrenaline rush, that stress, and that like tension and you being put in this hostile environment where you got to survive basically, like it's scary and all that. And although that still is the case, I've grown a lot more passionate about psychological horror games as well. I really like it when a game just really like messes with my head and like makes me question myself and like reality. So like I really like games that just like really get inside your head and just fuck with you. Then Layers of Fear is a game that does that almost flawlessly. This is a 100% psychological horror game. All right, this is like if you're someone who likes survival horror, getting chased or like hiding and running and all that stuff, then if you're someone like that and you purchase Layers of Fear, I highly recommend you try and get a refund because you are going to hate this game. But if you're someone who is also willing to try something new and someone who's trying to get into psychological walking simulators, then Layers of Fear is a great first place to start because this is a walking simulator psychological horror game at its finest. This game does walking sims and psychological horror in general perfectly. This is a great representant of psychological horror. This game represents psychological horror flawlessly because the thing about Layers of Fear does what a psychological game is supposed to do, and that is just mess with the player's head and just mess with you as well. Just like this game really messes with the player at times. So, without further ado, the first thing I want to talk about before we actually get into any other aspect is the gameplay. Usually I talk about stories first, especially since I'm a huge movie buff. I love, love, love stories. I feel like the gameplay is a little bit more at what matters here. Now, a lot of people say that Layers of Fear's gameplay is mostly just like you walking around and just getting jump scared. And although there is plenty of jump scares, this stuff is coming from people who just really don't like the game, and just like people who like hate the game for what it is. Layers of Fear is a walking simulator, but it does have a lot more going for it than just jump scares. Now, I'll admit the game does have a little too many jump scares. They do get a little annoying, but they're still effective at times. Especially when the game first started, and there are some creative jump scares in there as well. I mean, they're not like super super creative like they were in other games like Visage or PT or even Outlast, but they are decent jump scares. They only start to get annoying when you realize that there's a little too many of them, especially when you realize Layers of Fear's second scare factor. The thing about Layers of Fear is this game literally is the definition of insanity. If insanity was a video game, this like Layers of Fear would be that game because this game literally puts you into the mindset of someone whose mind is basically just slipping. And the thing about someone's mind is like some people have minds that are like glass cups. They're like super fragile and like they could break very easily. And that in this game basically puts you into someone who has a mindset like that. This game puts you into the mindset of someone whose like head is like literally just fading away. The thing about Layers of Fear, and what I'd say is its second scare factor besides the jump scares, is the world in Layers of Fear is constantly morphing around you, and it is so cool. Like, it's more cool than like actually just being scary, but it does also freak you out at times. Like there'll be times where you are just walking around in like the house, or like, this house over here. This is like what one part of the house looks like. Also, the environment of Layers of Fear is also really good as well. I mean, it's a little cliche. Basically, you're inside of this Victorian mansion, and of course, it's reminiscent of like a typical haunted house game. But the thing I like about Layers of Fear is like I like how it changed it up a bit, because like unlike a haunted house game where like there's paranormal activity and like there's ghosts walking around, like doors opening up on their own, the world itself is just morphing around you. It's the house itself is literally just changing around you. Like there'll be times where like you be looking at a wall, you'll turn around, there'll be nothing there, and like you're like, okay, it's like I'm trapped inside of a room where there's no doors. But then when you turn back around, now all of a sudden there's a door behind you, even though there wasn't one there before. The game like plays tricks on you. The game like messes with your head. It'll like make you question yourself. You'll be thinking like, wait a minute, I was just looking at that, there was nothing there, and like, wait, now there's a door there. Or like now, like, and it's not just doors. There will be times where like there'll be like an entirely new section that was there, even though it wasn't just a second ago when you weren't looking at it. Like the game just really messes with your head, and that's what I love about how this game does psychological horror, because this game truly messes with your head. This game is psychological horror at its finest. But yeah, guys, as I was saying, like the way the house just changes around you and is just morphing around you, and things that were not there before, but since you turned away and looked at something, and now when you looked back, now there's like an entirely new section there, or like a new door or something. It is absolutely awesome. This game does exactly what a survival horror game is supposed to do, and that is just fuck with the player's head and make them question what they were just doing and what they were seeing. This game messes with your head, it messes with your eyes, and it makes you think. It confuses you at times. That's what I love about Layers of Fear. I love how the game does psychological horror, because it does it like a psychological game should. Layers of Fear also succeeds where other psychological horror games fail, because they either try too hard or they don't try good enough. The way the world just morphs around you in this game is awesome. Like it's also just like I said, it's really cool. Like there'll be times like it's like the house is melting. Like as you're exploring, it's like the house is like just melting, and it's so cool, man. The psychological horror factor in this game is absolutely incredible. If you like psychological horror, then you are going to absolutely love Layers of Fear. And the game also, it's got some jump scares, and like I said, the jump scares are not as bad as people say they are. I mean, they do get a little repetitive, but they're still good. Now, another part of the gameplay is like, for the most part, yes, you will be exploring this mansion and solving puzzles. The puzzles in the game are like, they're not as good as I was expecting them to be. They're very tame and not very challenging. That is one problem I had with the game. The puzzles were just very uninspiring, but like they're decent, I guess. I mean, they're not great, but like they're decent. I mean, there was a couple of clever puzzles here and there, like some puzzles that actually like made me, okay, how am I gonna solve this? I love challenging puzzles, and Layers of Fear does have a couple of those, but for the most part they're very easy to figure out, and pretty sure even a toddler or a child could probably eventually figure it out. Another part of the gameplay is like, while exploring, there are like these notes all over the house, and like these notes shed a lot of light on the story of the game. The game does have a very dark story, and like it's a good one. And I am not going to spoil it for you. I want you guys to experience this story on your own. All I'm going to say is, if you like really dark, sad, and depressing stories, then you are going to love Layers of Fear as well, because the story is very dark. I mean, it's not as dark as Observer's story, which was Bloober Team's second game, but for what it is on its own, the story of Layers of Fear, while a teeny bit cliche, it is pretty damn dark. There's also a fair share of collectibles in the game. There's like these like rat pictures or whatever, like the protagonist. There's like these like, he draws like these like rat pictures or something, and like there are like these poems on it. There's like and like you can collect them. They're scattered throughout the house, and the good part is, each time you start a new game, you will still have all your collectibles. Like your collectibles will carry over to a new save file, so you can like constantly, like every time you start a new game, you could constantly just track down the collectibles and like collect everything. Not only that, but the game also has 3 endings. So like the game, like there is a lot you actually got to do while like playing the game. There's a lot of things to collect. There's like these family mementos that are scattered throughout the house while you are exploring, and it also gives the player a reason to explore. But yeah, guys, for the most part, this is a walking simulator, but like the game's scare factor and how the game just morphs around you, like I was saying, it will keep you interested. Trust me, especially if you are into this. You cannot be someone who is like super into survival horror. I mean, if you're into survival horror, you might still like the game, and if you're someone who is like willing to try something a little different, so, like if you're someone who's like willing to try a game that just like fucks with your head, then I'd say Layers of Fear is a great first place to start if you want to play something that just messes with your head, because that is exactly what Layers of Fear does. Another great scare factor about the game is, like I said, nothing chases you in this game, but there are like these baby dolls scattered throughout the house and like in the rooms, and there is a part in the game where they just like come to life, and it is super super freaky. And that's nothing about Layers of Fear scares. Unlike the scares just being like really disturbing and like really bone chilling and like just like really really terrifying, the scares in Layers of Fear are more just freaky. They're like really freaky, really creepy, and just like really kind of get under your skin. Like there's like these creepy baby dolls, and they just like start coming to life around you. And that's what I was talking about the game just being pure insanity. Like these dolls, like they start coming alive around you, and they start moving and running towards you. It's really really freaky. And like it also kind of adds a teeny bit of like you can't die in the game, but these baby dolls, they can't kill you or whatever. But like when they start running towards you and shit, and then like they all start moving around you and stuff, and like floating in the air, it is pretty fucking creepy. So that's another great thing about Layers of Fear's gameplay. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much the gameplay and the scare factor. This is a walking simulator, but it is a fun one. Layers of Fear is a fun little spooky journey. There's not a lot of tension. There's not a lot of stress. The game is just a fun little journey. That is all this game is. It's just a fun little walking simulator journey. And if you're someone who is into this genre, if you're someone who is into the walking simulator genre like myself, because personally I am a huge fan of walking sims, I really enjoyed this game. It is really fun if you are into that genre. I mean, but if you're someone who's like more into like action type horror like The Evil Within or Resident Evil or Outlast, then yeah, you're probably not gonna like this game because like it's just not very action packed. The game is just more of a journey, and I wouldn't call the game directly story focused because like the gameplay just has so many elements between the game's scare factor of the world just like changing and morphing around you, and you solving puzzles to like get your objective done. I'd say the gameplay does have a lot more going for it. It is a walking simulator, but it does have things that will keep you interested. So yeah, and your objective throughout the game is like you are collecting a bunch of pieces to complete your painting in this game. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil the story for you. Usually in my reviews, I do talk about the story, but this is one that I actually want you guys to experience on your own. So yeah, guys, that was the review for Layers of Fear. One other thing I want to talk about real quick is the soundtrack. My God, the soundtrack, mwah. Bloober team done a fantastic job. The soundtrack is a very cool combination of just like this really peaceful piano music, and then it just gets this really really freaky ambient theme. Like there is some ambient themes in this game, and especially in the DLC, that just really really get under my skin and just really really freak you out. Like this game just has like some really dark ambient themes and just like some really like peaceful piano music. So I love how Bloober team was able to balance that out. Another potential bad thing is this game's performance. If you are on Xbox One, PS4, or especially Nintendo Switch, the frame rate is garbage, unfortunately. The frame rate is very choppy and will get in the way of the enjoyment factor, unfortunately. I was playing on Series X, so my performance was flawless. If you're on a good PC, then it's not gonna be bad, but like if you're someone who's like on a PS4 or something or a Nintendo Switch, yeah, if you could get past the frame rate issues, then I mean it's not horrendous, like like it doesn't make the game like unplayable, but like there are just some times in the game where like the frame rate is just extremely choppy. The graphics look good. As you can see, there's a screenshot here. The graphics are very, very decent. I mean, it's nothing to look at twice, like, like Visage or even Outlast 2. There's this, like, Resident Evil 7. The graphics are nothing to look twice at, but they are decent for what it is. And especially since this was Bloober Team's first ever game, I'd say they done great with the graphics. I just wish they could have done better with the frame rate. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think about Layers of Fear. Like I said, if you're someone who enjoys psychological walking simulators, Layers of Fear will be a fun-ass game for you. I personally enjoyed this game a lot. It is one of my favorite horror games of all time, my favorite psychological horror games of all time. Great game if you're into this type of thing. And even if you're not, give it a shot, Maybe you'll like it, maybe you'll enjoy it. Because like I said, Layers of Fear at the end of the day is still a fun game. Like, it's still a fun little journey, a fun little walking puzzle horror simulator, you know? So yeah. Let me know what you guys think about Layers of Fear. Personally, I thought this game was awesome. I thought it was a great walking simulator, a great psychological horror game, and a great puzzle horror game as well. If you're into puzzles, like although the puzzles are kind of weak, they'll still keep you busy, you know, like even though like a puzzle doesn't need to be like super clever to actually keep the player busy. So the game does have some puzzles that will keep you busy and some clever ones as well. And if you're someone who is like new to stuff like that, I'd say Layers of Fear is a great first place to start if you're someone who is new to walking simulators, puzzle horror games, or just like psychological horror games. So yeah, Layers of Fear, fantastic game. Go pick it up for $19.99 on the Xbox store, the PlayStation store, and you know, like even on Switch, like even though the game is like even though the frame rate on Switch is significantly worse, if you're playing in handheld mode, it's better. Just don't fucking play on your TV. But if you're playing it on handheld mode on the Switch, the frame rate is a little better. But yeah, go pick up Layers of Fear, guys. It's a great horror game, a one hell of a horror game, and let me know what you thought of the story as well. The story, like I said, all I can tell you is that it's very dark, very depressing, and very sad. It's not even scary. It's just Layers of Fear just has a very dark and sad, tragic story. The story is literally about tragedy and insanity, just like the actual gameplay. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think about Layers of Fear. Great game. And I will be talking about Layers of Fear 2, and one thing I could already say is Layers of Fear 2 is definitely not as good as the first game, but you know, it was still a decent game on its own. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about Layers of Fear. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know down in the comment section below, and let me know what game do you want to see me review next on the channel. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Let me know what you think of Layers of Fear. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. This is Mr. Rage 22 signing off. Bye-bye, guys, and have a good one.